it's probably sensible that we start fairly promptly. We've got 3 speakers today. I'm the first. We've got Peter Parslow, my old friend from ISO, who's chair of ISO 211, that's about geographic systems, and we've got Mark Enzer, who has been one of the key figures in driving the UK national digital twin of the national infrastructure. So what we've decided to do, rather than give you 3 nice long detailed presentations, but to give you a quick 6 or 7 minute presentation each, to then spend some time in discussing among ourselves, and hopefully we'll all be able to join in time, and then give a chance for some real discussion with those of you who are on the call as well. So it's really important that you think about any questions you have, any points you want to make, and please, if you could put them in the chat on the right hand side of the box that you can see in front of you, so that it makes it very visible up to us and we can respond to it well. So digital twins in construction and smart cities. Let me see if I can get my thing to move. The key thing about smart cities is that cities are very complicated. There's many different systems in cities, many different types of infrastructure. Can I check people can see my screen's moving? Can you see the new screen? Anyone like to say? Well, I'm hoping it is. If it's not, let somebody tell me.
Changing, Michael.
Fantastic, because you never can be quite sure with these things. So there are many different things happening in the city, many different systems that are managed by many different organizations with many different aims and ambitions. And it's complicated enough as it is, but then to try and see how we can make all of these different systems and infrastructures in the city work together to help deliver the city's objectives is a big, big challenge. And that's why increasingly you're finding cities are looking at the opportunities that that digital twins can provide in helping to provide the evidence and the expertise that they need to do their work. So let me just, I keep losing the arrows. So let me just, my mouse is, so the key issue that we've got is that as city leaders and managers are trying to manage the city. Oh dear, this is terrible. I can't get my mouse to link onto the. Let me just. This is the best way of doing it. Good. So the great thing is we have 2 communities of practice that have very practical experience that they can bring to help city managers in this key objective that they have. We've got the building information modeling community that have real experience in using digital modeling, digital replication to help manage the building and construction, the design, building and construction process. And you've got the digital twin community that have been using digital twins to help with engineering and manufacturing. And let's look at these both very briefly together. So building information modeling is about digitalizing the construction process, and it's been a real success in the UK, still a long way to go, but it's what it enables is everybody that's involved in designing a building, a campus, a business park, a bridge, a station, everybody working on the design will have a common model of that design that they can work on together, so that they can see exactly how their part fits in with everybody else's, and they can make sure that any changes that are being happening in the overall design, that they're aware of them immediately and they can respond effectively. And by having that common, if you like, that model of the design as it's being put together, it means that those who've got the responsibility for the whole of that building, that bridge, that station, they can look at different options and see how the whole thing can be altered. So they can think about if we need to cut costs by 10%, by 5%, if we need to cut carbon footprint, what are the different options we've got to do that? So it's been really useful in the design of new buildings, new developments. But of course, once you've developed these models, you can then use them to help you with the construction process, making sure that it goes well and that it delivers what you've designed. And then once the buildings have been put up, it then helps you, these same models can help you make sure that the buildings that you've put in place are meeting the design objectives you've got. Are they as are they able to use all the different systems that you've intended? Are they working as well as you wanted? And you're able then to make adjustments to make sure that the buildings that you've designed and built work really well. And of course, having done that, with all the experience that's been gained in moving from individual buildings to campuses, business parks, other things, it's very easy to think how we can expand that to city scale and see how we can use those same tools and those same ideas to help manage the city and the built environment of the city more effectively. Then looking at digital twins, these have come from engineering, manufacturing, and we often look to examples of NASA and the way it was used in the early days to help design spacecraft and so on, and in Formula One racing, as you're looking at really pushing the boundaries of design and technology, and instead of having to spend lots of time in actually building prototypes and testing them, you can do a lot of that virtually. And so it proved enormously effective in those pioneering aspects of engineering and manufacture, and it's then been increasingly used within modern manufacturing to look at how you could design not just individually equipped pieces of equipment and machines, but design the whole process of manufacturing, of design, manufacturing, and distribution to make sure that you have a whole system approach to making sure that what you want is delivered in the best way possible. And so digital twins in engineering and manufacturing are not only focused on digital replications of physical assets, but they also look at the processes and the people behind all of those things to make sure that everything works as a whole and delivers what's required. And the great thing, therefore, is that you've got these two different communities that are all putting their experience and bringing together their tools to help ensure that digital twins for cities actually are effective and make sense. So what they deliver are digital representations of different aspects of the city. We're not talking about one big, all singing, all dancing digital twin of the whole city, but it's looking at how different aspects of the city, whether it's parts of the city or whether it's whole city, but looking at it from, say, flood prevention or some other issue, all of these different replications of the city for different purposes can be linked together to provide key insights on the places, the physical assets, the processes, and the people of the city, so that it will enable all the city's resources to be brought together to achieve its objectives. But of course, this is very complicated. It's not something that can be done simply by one set of expertise, bringing one set of expertise into place. It involves bringing together lots of different sorts of technical areas, all of which need to play a key role in making these digital twins effective and useful. There's some listed there, but many others. You've got augmented reality, 3D modeling, management processes, and so on. So many different areas of expertise are needed to make this work. And that's a challenge, because what we need to do is to find out how we can identify what the gaps are and how we can bring all of these different sets of expertise, all the different technical committees that are developing standards in these different areas to be able to do that for digital twins for cities. So in the International Electrotechnical Commission, we've been doing for the last couple of years a process of collecting use cases and analysing them to try and to start to identify the gaps. We ran a 2-day virtual seminar on city information modelling and urban digital twins, and I think you've got access to the report of that. But the key thing is that we're setting up a joint working group with a number of the other SDOs to help sort of stand back, to set up some sorts of frameworks, to do some joint gap analysis on what's needed, and then to coordinate, if you like, the whole process of developing the standards needed to make sure that all of the things that are needed are not only developed, but developed in a coordinated way so that everything fits together nicely to provide the tools that cities need with digital twins for their city. So that's hopefully a fairly broad introduction. I hope Peter Parslow is on the call. Yes, I can see this question about Peter's asking, is Peter, are you actually on the call yet, Peter? I can see in the chat.
Hi, Michael, it's Sarah. I can see Peter's on the call, but I think he might be having issues sort of hearing you. He is using a different device. So Peter, can you hear anything at all?
Are you there, Peter? And also I see Mark. This is a great challenge, isn't it? Mark is also having challenges. So I don't know why we're waiting for hopefully Sarah and the other experts to help Mark and Peter. Are there any questions from anybody on the call? You can speak, you can write anything in the chat, anything that we can, you know, to clarify anything of what I've said, or any questions about what we're talking about.
Michael, one question.
Yeah.
Hello,
yes.
Michael. Kate Chandler from Synthesis. One question I have, if I may, please.
Yes.
For the digital twinning architecture, the V model for systems of systems architecture, broadly used within tactical data, for example, is a really good model from which to apply these areas. Within the committee that you said that you were forming, have you considered using broader initiatives from other organizations and other areas of expertise that might actually help facilitate laying out that proposal plan for your standards application?
Well, thank you very much for volunteering, is all I could say. So we know we need to bring in everything, and particularly as you're talking about the systems approach. In our IEC Smart City Systems Committee, the reason for our existence is because we recognise you need to have a systems approach, and we're working, for instance, within COSI in terms of systems engineering to develop a systems approach to developing standards. But we know very little. That's what we do know. It's one of these known unknowns and all the rest of it. Would you be interested in talking with me outside of this to see?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure this is going to be shared, and my email address is hopefully on the front screen, but that would be very helpful indeed. This is very complicated, and particularly as we try and get this whole picture, any help we can get will be great. Thanks very much indeed. Who's got the next question or comment?
Hello, Michael. My name's John Harrod Booth. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can, yes, I can.
Okay, this is good. I've just come off doing one of these presentation sessions myself. So I'm the chair of BSI EPL 278, which is Intelligent Transport Systems.
I heard you earlier.
Oh, very good.
I was on the call, and I heard you mention digital twins.
Well, absolutely. So
exactly,
yes.
Yes.
I have a particular interest in standards related to network modelling for roads, and I'm rather interested as to whether there's any specific action that's being taken at the moment in terms of trying to integrate that need. If I look at your title, and I apologise, I've only just joined your session. It says digital twins for construction and smart cities. I'm more in the space of network management, network operation,
Yes.
navigation systems, and that sort of space. So I wonder where the interface is. I would be very happy to have a conversation offline.
I would be very happy too. You know, this makes a lot of sense. I have another presentation which doesn't really address that terribly much, but but only in the sense that clearly in a city, what you're wanting to do is to understand all the different things that are going on, and transport is clearly a key part of it. It's probably one of the most obvious areas where you need to get a sense of what's going on, you know, what's coming into the city, what's going out, what's moving around the city, goods, people, what are the challenges, are there accidents, problems, whatever, how you can help manage those together, and what the impact is, for instance, of congestion on employment, on, you know, jobs, businesses, health, all kinds of things like that. And the other thing about it is we've been talking about cities, and clearly this is not just about major urban conurbations, because even if you're looking at a city and you're really focusing on the city, it's quite clear that the city is not an island that's self-sufficient. Any city depends on goods and services coming into it. Lots of people move in and out of the city every day, and they need to have their needs and that addressed. So even when you're thinking about the city, you're not just thinking about transport within the city, but you're looking at how you can manage that whole process of goods and transport coming from wherever it is into the city, moving around it in the right ways. And you know, exactly one of the challenges we've got is to link with, I mean, we've been thinking of ISO 204, but there are other kind of specialist technical, I mean, I think ISO 204 and obviously your the BSI one as well. I mean, you're looking at things in a way that's probably much more advanced than many other areas of city life in terms of modeling and so on. So it will be really useful to think about how we could link up and how we could make sure we got the interfaces right. What we've been thinking of doing is like a three-layered approach in terms of our joint working group. What we're trying to do is to get at least ISO 268, which is the ISO committee on, if you like, smart and sustainable communities, the ITU study group 20, which is looking at IoT and smart cities, JT's one, SC41, which is looking at IoT and digital twins. So if we could get those kind of four, along with our IEC, committees together, then we can work on a kind of a common approach. We can then do some of the standards together, but some of it in our own separate specialist city-focused, if you like, or community-focused technical committees. But then the idea is that because we'd have key players in each of the different, you know, SDOs, we'd be there able to reach out more widely to other committees to make sure we're able to draw on their expertise, and we're linking everything up together. So it would be very good to talk with you.
Okay.
Good. Again, hopefully, my email address is there, so drop me a line. How are we doing with Peter and Mark, Sarah?
I'm not sure if they're in on the system yet. I'm trying to look. I think I did see Mark was in at one point. We have sent them the information to kind of get back in. We are talking to them and trying to get them on the call as soon as possible. But yeah, I'm not sure what's happening.
Technology, yes.
I'm really sorry. Yeah.
So
I can see Peter's on the call, but I don't know if he's on if he's unable to hear still.
So let's just check. I mean, I'm always happy to keep going, but it would make much more sense. Peter or Mark, can you speak? Are either of you able to provide your knowledge and expertise to this call? Maybe if and when you're able to, maybe you could just let me know so that I can stop talking about these things. That'd be really good. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Oh, good. Okay. I can see. I can see Kate's email. I don't know if somebody could capture that in the chat, because I'm not going to be typing away. But thanks, Kate. So, anybody else got a question?
Hello, can you hear me?
All right. Yep, I
Hi,
can.
so my name's Mateusz, and I'm a PhD student, and I want to research the standards and their implementation in the city, especially those concerning like smart cities and stuff. And
Yeah.
so my question would be more, because we've seen a lot of this expertise, especially from the engineering background in the presentation, but what's the sort of engagement on the other end, like the how and to what extent are local governments engaged in the development of standards? Is there any interest already in picking them up?
Yeah. So, you know, around the world, my first slide, if you saw it, is, I mean, it's China. It's Tianjin Eco City. It's their digital twin of the city. So a number of countries are quite advanced in being able to bring together data from many different centers and display it and query it and so on. So lots of cities are doing it in different countries. Europe, we're involved. The European Commission is focused on what it calls local digital twins, and is supporting cities. There's a number of projects which cities are involved in. I'm involved in one called Duet, where there's a number of cities that are working together to develop city digital twins, specifically looking at things like transport and air quality. You know, not covering everything, but covering some of the key challenges that cities face, and finding how you can manage that. And there are a number of cities around Europe, even Hamburg, Helsinki, Rotterdam, are developing quite sophisticated digital twins. The challenge of all of this is that what you need is interoperability. You know, there's quite a lot of proprietary solutions out there, and obviously cities are trying to solve problems of implementations to a certain extent on their own, and because of that, what you don't want is lots of isolated sort of digital twins of cities that don't link to each other. And also, of course, and it's one of the things I know Mark will be talking about, that within a city you often have, so at the moment, you know, you'll find lots of airports are building digital twins of the airport, or of a mainline railway station, you know, around the world. So they're or about the energy distribution network or telecoms and so on. So you've got lots of sectors that are developing these digital twins, and they're finding them very useful, but they're all being done obviously in isolation. And the big challenge that we're trying to address in standards, of course, is how you can make it so that you can share the information between these, not to make it so that everything's open and transparent, because you know that's not practical. It would be, first of all, far too much data, and secondly, a lot of it is, you know, is sensitive in various different ways. But what you want to be able to do is to enable information from different digital twins that will be useful to other areas of city life or the life of a country or region, to be able to make that to be able to be done easily when it's appropriate, so that you can gain the real benefit from this. I was in Mexico a few years back, just after there was a big earthquake in Mexico City, and I had the chance to talk to the chief information officer, effectively, of the city, Mexico City, and he said it was just a couple of months after the earthquake, and he said it was really difficult because the electricity company, they knew exactly where all the electricity routes and everything were. The gas people did, the water people did, and so on. But there was no way to share that information. So when people were coming to different parts of the city to try and shut down gas, electricity, water, deal with things that were going on, they only knew their bit. They didn't know the other bit. And it would have been really useful to be able to share information across at that, you know, critical time, to enable the city to respond even better to that emergency. But because of the lack of interoperability and all the rest of it didn't happen. So what we're trying to do in the standards world is to make sure these things can link. Sorry. Yeah.
Michael, is there any chance I could raise a quick question there, though, on the phrase of interoperability? Because fundamentally, any system needs to be interchangeable if you're going to have the ability to plug and play. So interoperable obviously is working alongside one another, but if you want to be able to extrapolate, pick out and put in anywhere in the world with the appropriate security standards in place, then it needs to be surely interchangeable.
Yes, I can see Mark. I'm just wondering if Mark's available, because Mark Enzer is that's really his topic.
Yes, he should be, Michael.
Yeah. So can I just pass over to Mark, because you can probably address that question in what you're planning to say. Is that okay? We can't hear you yet, Mark. We can see you but not hear you.
Okay, what about that now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Brilliant.
Okay, super. I'm sorry, I've had a few technical problems this morning. But yes, this question about interoperability, I think, is absolutely key. And I agree with the questioner that in order to kind of have something that kind of works at a global level, there really does need to be this kind of interoperability. So I think our challenge is to reduce the friction in information sharing across organizational boundaries. I don't think we'll reduce it completely, but there's an awful lot that we can do to reduce it quite a bit. And for me, some of the key things are about having consistent high quality data models. If everybody's got different data models, like completely different, and they're not high quality, then it makes the information flow really difficult. And then I would also say the same kind of thing about having reference data. Ideally, we should have shared reference data, and then also have some common access and security protocols. Because if we're all working on different things, then those are the kind of things that get in the way. So I do very much agree with the kind of the thrust of the question, and I think that there are some relatively simple things to say to address it. They're quite difficult to do, though, because it does mean bringing an awful lot of people together across a lot of organizations. But isn't that where standards come in? You know, that's kind of the point of standards, isn't it?
Thank you, Mark. I'm sorry, one question on that, though, is the validation then and the testing of the standard application to ensure that that interchangeability is achievable.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I think that if you have the data that conforms to the high quality data model I talked about, and it is referencing shared reference data, then it's really the data that gets shared across the boundary rather than the application. So in some ways, you're kind of freed up to have all sorts of different applications the other side of the boundary, because what's going across it is data, and I think it's that becomes important to come in a kind of in standard packets rather than standard applications.
No, absolutely, and it's whether or not it's the security of that data and the transparency.
Yes, I completely agree. And that's all to do with kind of data about the data. But I utterly agree with your point.
I think it shows all the different kinds of things that we need to be looking at when we think about these digital twins. You know, as you say, data models, security protocols, making sure that people have the confidence that when they take data from somewhere else or they provide data, that it's going to be handled appropriately. All of these things need to be put in place, otherwise the whole thing won't work. So I see that Peter's in.
Yeah, I don't know whether we're allowed time.
Are you able to speak, Peter?
I'm speaking, but I don't know if anyone can hear me.
I can hear you. Yes, I can.
So I need to go down in this seat or something. There you go. Michael, could you put the slides back? If we're still allowed to use this time, it's well over an allocated slot. apologies for all those technical difficulties. They're nothing to do with digital twins, they're just to do with IT in general. So
well, let me.
For those who are wondering what's going on, so I'm Peter Parslow, I work at Ordnance Survey. I chair an ISO committee on geographic information standards, and I've been part of BSI's Smart and Sustainable Cities and Communities Standards Committee to bringing this geospatial perspective. And I accepted the challenge to try and cover the geographical underpinnings of a city-scale digital twin in a couple of slides. Michael, if you could just go in present mode.
I'm just thinking, can that be?
Yeah,
I had trouble myself in getting on.
I can see your slide view in sort of edit mode, which is fine if you just click onto the next one.
Okay, let me just
whatever you want to.
having done that. Oh dear, it is a challenge. I mean, we think this is just Zoom, but it's not Zoom.
Oh, well, I've just gone for straight Zoom. That's got me in. Anyway, it's gone now.
Yes.
So
well done, you.
in TC211, we had a project for a large part of last year where we were looking at how we can better serve the smart cities and digital twins standards communities by explaining the geographical standards more easily. During that piece of work, we came up with a working statement because we started looking at smart cities and digital twins as a buzz phrase came along. So we came up with this. It's not really a fully endorsed, but it's a working statement. A digital twin of a city is a tool that a smart city can use to help it achieve its objectives. So mostly if you talk to cities, they say, we want to be sustainable financially or environmentally or something. And by which they may mean we want our traffic to flow better without polluting the air so much, or various different things. And there are various technical tools that can be used. And there's a tendency in some cities to feel that we technical people are merely trying to push a technical tool. So we said, no, it's about you as a city or community trying to achieve your objectives. Anyway, that's not geography, that's just a common statement. If you go on to the next slide, Michael. We've picked up from the Organisation for Agile and Smart Cities, the idea of minimum interoperability mechanisms. So I'm just going to cover two. So the first one, which is recognised in the ISO/IEC standards on smart city IT infrastructure, is that you need a common idea of the spatial position of things. You need to know where the things in the city are. So if you look at it from a construction industry point of view, you may design a building, you may actually take an off-the-shelf design, and then you place it somewhere in the world. Once you step outside the door, you need to know where in the world is it. That image some might recognize, but the point is that once you've gone beyond one building site, the world isn't flat. So your common idea needs to take account of the fact that the world is roughly spherical, and that it's constantly moving and so on. So don't worry, if you like, the geographers have got standards for these things. They've been working for years. So it's just picking the right coordinate reference system and using it in common across the city or area. So there are subtleties in that. It's sometimes really useful to have a flat and square system. Then your right angles are right angles, whereas obviously in the real world they aren't. So we spent some time working with Building Smart International to give them a sort of rule of thumb that once a site is bigger than 1 kilometre in any direction, it matters that the Earth is curved. There's a link there when you get these to how Crossrail was affected by that. At the scale they're operating at, the Earth isn't flat even when you're digging a hole through it. And to look at it another way, if you imagine the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, nice big construction that most people can picture, the supports that hold it up are obviously vertical, meaning that their tops are directly above their bottoms in terms of direction down to the center of the Earth. Now the bridge is so long that this means the tops are actually about 1 meter further apart than the bottoms are, because they go over the curvature of the Earth. So don't worry about it, just talk to your geographers and find the right coordinate reference system that manages that. If you go on to the next slide, Michael, the other aspect that's sometimes a bit subtle is that none of us are staying still. Okay, we're spinning through space at speeds that are beyond imagination, but more relevantly, our tectonic plates are moving. So if you take a position straight off the satellites, which are fixed to the center of the Earth by gravity, then you get a couple of numbers to tell you where you are in the south coast of England. If you go back a decade later with those couple of numbers, you'll get a place that's subtly different. It'll be about 25 centimeters over a decade. So during the course of a construction project, that probably doesn't matter. But during the lifetime of a city, that's going to matter, that your objects will be meters away from where you thought they were. And we're moving quite slowly. Australia's moving a lot faster. Some countries are rotating and other things like this. So again, that's a matter of picking the right coordinate reference system. There's a YouTube video with a nice explainer by a colleague of mine. So there's one of the minimum interoperability things. Just agree on a positioning system and use it throughout your city. And then next one, the other minimum interoperability thing I'd like to mention is having a city model. Now, I couldn't hear much of the audio before I joined directly via Zoom, but I think you were, so Michael, I saw was saying some things about city models. These are images of city models. All three of these use the OGC's City GML standard, which has got nothing actually to do with GML anymore, which is a particular exchange mechanism. It's just that's the legacy name. But again, these ISO IEC standards recognize the value of having an open standard-based city model. So you're not locked into a particular supplier. Obviously, this is a standards meeting, so you would expect us to say that. Cities around the world, so this is Amsterdam and Berlin and I think it's Chongqing in China, but are using this same OGC standard, which builds on the ISO standards for geography. And it provides you with whatever level of detail you consider is appropriate. So the Smart City ICT indicator makes the point that it's more important that you've got the information you need for your city. That's more important than that the picture looks pretty. Yeah? So don't get sucked in, if you like, by very pretty looking city models, and the two on the right are quite attractive, when actually what you need is accuracy, precision. You need the level of detail that's appropriate to what a city is trying to achieve. And that might mean you need to know the exact height of every building and the roof shape, and so in order to have this city model. Now, a city model is not a digital twin. It's the basis for one. On top of that, you need to lay the real-time information from sensors, and that might be how much sunshine is falling on your building, what's the air pollution, what's the traffic, whatever the problem is you're trying to solve with your digital twin. And also potentially the actuators, yeah, so that this is where the digital twin can be actually working to control the city. So back even before computers, you had traffic light systems that would sense when the traffic was building up, and using simply wires in the ground. I suppose it strictly wasn't before computers, but it was certainly in the last century, and they would be able to change the light phasing depending on the amount of traffic. It's that kind of thing, but modernized and operated at a city scale rather than an individual junction. So that's just to say, to us as geographers, everything needs geography. I hope that the point is made here that at least you need to agree where things are and how you're going to express that, so your computers understand where the things they're representing are. And you need a common city model, and building one on an open standard data model for a city is the best practice approach in our view. So that's my couple of minimum interoperability mechanisms, MIMs, that I think are recognized actually in the OASC's list, but we haven't submitted all the helpful input to that list yet for defining what's really meant by location and so on. So that was my couple of slides.
I look forward to receiving it, Peter.
We need to draft it better first, Michael. But,
yes.
Yeah, so,
and Michael, I know it's all back to front, but I mean, is it worth me sharing my slides on the kind of connection between digital twins?
It is indeed. If you can sort that out.
I can try. Let's see if technology will let me.
I think now we're in,
Yes,
Mark, it's
yes,
working
yes,
fine.
yes.
It was getting in was the problem. Once you're in, it seems to work.
Okay, super. Yeah, so this is really just a couple of words to explain the terminology around connected digital twins. So this is a very generalized representation of a single digital twin with this two-way connection between physical and digital data going one way and interventions going the other. And that data enabling insights and those leading to decisions, and hopefully the interventions leading to better outcomes. So that's the basis of a digital twin. And we can see that digital twins are not so much an individual technology, but more like a methodology, a means of integrating technology kind of all the way around. We don't have time to go into what type of technology can be integrated, but you can read it there. And I think in the built environment and in the context of cities, we can see that really digital twins are all about making better decisions faster. That's how you release value from them. And we can have digital twins of assets and processes and systems. And within the digital twin, there's something about handling data. There's some kind of models which kind of get fed with that data, and something also to do with visualizations, helping humans to see what's going on. But really, we believe that digital twins should be driven by purpose. So those are the individual digital twins, and you can apply that to pretty much anything, an enormous number of use cases you can imagine for individual digital twins, which then means you can have a digital twin of a train or track or signaling. And in the physical world, those are joined up. So each one of these individual digital twins is a cyber physical system. It's a connection between physical and digital. But what we mean when we talk about connected digital twins is making connections between twins. And that connection is an information flow. It's about data, secure, resilient information flow across organizational sector boundaries. So that's kind of what we're meaning by connected digital twins. And if we apply that to built environment, then it's kind of useful to see the built environment as a system of systems, because what connected digital twins help us to do is to understand the systems better and intervene more effectively. And we can see throughout that system of systems, there's all sorts of processes which ideally should be connected up. There should be the golden thread of information flowing through all these processes. So this infinity loop shouldn't just be individual separate processes. And within those processes, there's loads of decisions going on. Remember that digital twins are all about making better decisions faster. So that can be the focus. And you can therefore imagine an almost infinite number of potential digital twins. We're not suggesting that everyone should be followed up. It's more a case of following the purpose. So where there's a purpose to develop a digital twin to make the better decisions, do that. And where there's a purpose to join them, to do that. So this should be very much purpose-led. And so this idea of having connected digital twins across built environment and cities is kind of seeing that there would be many of these potential cyber-physical connections, many individual digital twins. But in the context of a city where all these systems come together to serve people, we can see the benefit of making these information connections between them. And so an example of that might be between the energy system and the transport system, because the transport system increasingly will depend on the energy system. But that's really all I wanted to say, is just to introduce this idea of making connections between digital twins and seeing how that can benefit us in the context of a city.
Any comments or questions for Mark?
That was super quick. I downloaded, that's about 3 years worth of work in that.
Thank you, yes.
Hi, it's Sarah here. Sorry, there is a question in the Q&A section on the right-hand side. It may have already been covered, but I've just pushed it through. I didn't spot it originally, and I'm not sure who would be the one to answer that. I don't know if you can see it on the Q&A header. I can read it out if not.
Is it the one from John Harrod Booth?
No, so it's on the far right hand side. It's not in the chat. It's on the Q&A. So I'll read it out. It says lots has been done on habitat and biodiversity mapping. Is this integrated into smart city planning to ensure development adds biodiversity benefit and takes advantage of nature-based systems? I wasn't sure if that had already been covered, but I just wanted to pick that up before you ended the call. I
mean, just a quick response is there are many aspects of smart cities and smart city planning. And, you know, clearly when we talk about digital twins, we're talking about tools to help look at all of those things. And again, it's a matter of how wide you go. Clearly, lots of standards work is going on about biodiversity, nature-based solutions, and so on. And, you know, the challenge in all of these things is to bring together all of that different expertise into the whole. But it is certainly an important thing that we need to be looking at as how we can. I don't know if Peter, as a geographer, how you can bring that stuff into thinking about digital twins.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think it very much depends on the city, or the community making a decision as to what it's going to focus on. So some years ago, 5-6 years ago, I saw a presentation from the city of Wellington in New Zealand. There, I think he was probably a CTO. He just called himself the chief nerd. But he gave one of his presentations was on how they'd realized that the microphones they now had attached throughout the city as part of the business for monitoring crime, that those could be used in the park areas. They tuned an algorithm to distinguish between native species. In New Zealand is a big thing between native species and imported European birds. So they could monitor the behavior of native species over other species as they changed the inputs they were making to the parks in the city. So that was certainly a case where in New Zealand, it gets into the city's planning system to say they need to look at biodiversity, and they were able to use at that stage it would have been called smart city technology. It was at least monitoring there was no robotic actuating. It was men going out and putting down different kinds of food and things for the animals. Was the feedback loop. But in that sense, you know, if the city decides that biodiversity is one of the things it wants to promote, then the same technology approaches can be used. They tend to be less probably on the actuator side, just because if you're making a nature-based approach as an intervention, it's less likely to be driven through an automatic process, in my view. I'd have no actual experience on that, but I'm aware that there's some national parks and so on who are looking at using digital twin approaches of the park in order to monitor and at least provide the information that allows them to make the decision, where they then go out and change the intervention. Whether they're, I think, as yet still not. I guess the nearest would be looking at automated flood control and so on. And so the Environment Agency does a lot of that, where they are using actuators to open and close sluices to manage water flows in UK waters, and they've been doing that for decades. So it's sort of, where do you draw the line in whether the thing's a digital twin or not, and is the application nature-based or not? But yeah, a little bit waffly, but a bit of a response to that, I think. I'll go with, I hope they get used that way, but it's the individual governance of the city or the community that's going to decide what they use them for. Is that useful?
Yeah, sounds good. We have gone over our time. Sarah, what should we do?
I think if you're happy to, we can wrap up now, Michael, if that's good with everyone. Yeah, because then there's a lunch break for delegates. So yeah, that fits quite nicely.
Fantastic. Well, I guess there's a way of contacting each of us, hopefully, and we'd be very happy to continue the conversation, I'm sure, after this. So please get back to us all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and sorry for the confusion getting in.
Thank you all.
Good.
Thanks.
Take care then. Bye.
Bye.